If you can defend Bernie Madoff, then surely you can defend anyone. That's why Dan Horwitz is here with us this morning. Dan was part of Madoff's defense team, and we've asked him to handle another tall order, make the case for Raj Rajaratnam, because Raj's defense begins today. Dan is a partner at Lankler Carragher. So, Dan, you're John Dowd. You're Raj Rajaratnam's lead defense lawyer. Tell me how you're going to persuade a jury that Raj is innocent.
It's a multi-pronged attack. You've got to deal with cooperators, and you got to deal with tapes. And we've laid out witnesses that could begin to rebut the evidence that the prosecution has put in. Now remember, Eric, that unlike a prosecutor, a defense lawyer only has to show reasonable doubt, and that's very important for the viewers to understand.
It's innocent until proven guilty.
That's exactly right. We don't have the burden. In other words, we don't have to prove anything. We just have to convince at least one juror that there's reasonable doubt. And the way that we'd go about doing that is with witnesses that can strategically attack key points that the prosecution has made.
So who do you call? Who are your key witnesses?
Well, they've got an insider, somebody who was at Galleon, which is very important, who can explain how the business worked and why it is they didn't need to rely on inside information. And they have an expert who's going to testify about things that take place in the market and the provision of information into the marketplace itself. Just earlier this morning, you did a piece on a pending deal with Tyco. Well, there's lots of information in the market, and Galleon employed lots of people to gather lots of information. And after all, talk is cheap. So you want to back it up with research, and you want to back it up with analysis. And that's how Galleon did its business, and that's what you want to try to show, that they didn't need this inside information. On top of that, you also want to show, did Raj really know that it was inside information? Because, again, there's lots of talk out there. There are rumors. There's information that folks like Bloomberg is putting out, and sophisticated analysts following things, and you're gathering a matrix of information, and all of that goes into the pot for you to make a trading decision. Did they really need to rely on inside information?
You talk about the burden of proof being on the prosecution, and of course that is absolutely true. But after all of the evidence that has been presented to the jury in the form of cooperating witnesses who've pleaded guilty, in the form of wiretap conversations, isn't the psychological burden now on the defense?
Well, in a sophisticated white-collar case, it's easy for a defense lawyer like me to say, well, we don't have the burden of proof. But jurors expect an explanation from the defense side. As a practical matter, Eric, I think you're absolutely right. And I think you need to put into context the information that's on the wiretaps. Were the conversations complete? Were they as the prosecution suggests they were, or was there something else going on in the background along the lines of what I'm talking about? Did Raj really need the information? When were trades made in connection with information that was provided? Who was talking? Who are these cooperators? Do they have an incentive to lie? Are they trying to help themselves by getting out from under? I mean, these are typical tools that defense lawyers use in cases like this.
Once again, you're John Dowd. Do you call Raj to take the stand in his own defense?
That's a tough call. And I think most defense lawyers are going to prepare for it from the beginning of the case. And they really need to see, A, how the prosecution's case goes in, and B, how these setup witnesses, if you would, go in. Because you
want to be able to make a game time decision.
Sure, exactly. And you're ready to go. And I think all of us have been in that situation where, and you know, remember, your clients want to testify. Everybody wants to get up there and tell their story. And so you've got to balance that against what the strategic needs are, because, again, even though the jury does need to have things put into context, it's not our burden. It's the government's burden.
Thanks very much for joining us here, Dan.
Thanks, Eric.
Great to hear what John Dowd's strategy would be from Dan Horwitz, a partner at Lankler Carragher and formerly co-counsel for Bernie Madoff.